And welcome to For Fantasy's Sake on the For Frequency's Sake podcast network. I'm your host, Doug, along with Chris. We are going to be talking about HBO's Night of the Seven Kingdoms, episode 4. I think it's just titled 7. That would be my guess anyway, based upon the talking of getting to 7. We've only got 2. We need 5 more guys. So much like Dunk, we gotta search out for some friends.
We got to find friends or we go to jail. That's essentially it. Or no, we get
Yeah,
beheaded probably. Either way.
yeah. He's definitely losing some type of appendage at some point. Poor guy. So this episode basically picks up right where last week's picks up, um, where we see the ramifications and fallout of Dunk basically punching Sir Douchebag in the face. And we have, cards on the table. They have now who knows who Egg really is, because he saved his bacon. And then no joking. Okay, joke intended. Um, and then they have an interesting little heart to heart there in the jail cell. I did watch kind of the quick behind the scenes. There was like a 6-minute version of the behind the scenes that I caught today, and the guy who plays Dunk kind of talked about how they shot it multiple ways, trying to find the right emotion for how Dunk felt with Egg. He said, there was one that he was very angry with, and one that he was kind of sullen, and one that he felt guilty about. Do you feel like they laid it on the right note with that?
It's a hard balance to strike because I was thinking about that too. And just that opening shot I thought was fantastic. It really went into some great storytelling without doing anything extraordinary because it's opening on kind of just like what it's devoid of any context. And because it's devoid of any context, I think it lends itself to the person bringing their own context to it. So my mind was like, okay, we're looking at stars. Like that's been our central metaphor throughout the entire thing. And I was like, okay, these are stars and constellations all together. And then as it keeps panning, it's like, well, this is weird that they're all so close together. Is this dragon scales or something like that? Again, just trying to bring something to it, and then it's like, no, we're in a cell just like Dunk, where we had no idea what was going on there for a minute. Now it's crystallized for us. We're in a cell because we just didn't know what was going on for a long period of time here. And this is where we're at this point. And he has to really kind of lay into Egg because he did lie and he's in this predicament now because of him a little bit. So I I think it struck the right tone where it wasn't too aggressive, but it was to the point where it was direct and he told him what he really felt, like when they're in private together. Now, when he's with Baylor, it's a completely different conversation at that point because he's no longer going to give him his true thoughts. I think that's kind of seeing Dunk adapt to this world a little bit, as he knows that he can't really share exactly the way he really feels with this guy who's his superior. He has to kind of couch it a little bit, and maybe it's him going to bat for Egg. Maybe I'm misreading that, but I thought it was kind of a nice way to really deal with a scene like that.
Yeah, I did. They did feel like they kind of like there was some ebb and flow to it. Like he was mad, and he kind of gave him an angry burst, but then he kind of also kind of backed off a little bit. Like, okay, I'm mad, but I get it. And he even said in the behind the scenes, he's like, at the end of the day, he's still a kid, um, and he's going to make kid decisions, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what he did. And even his uncle pointed that out later on in the scene when all three of them were together. He was like, "You could have came and got me, and you chose to go and get him."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he
So
knows that if he did go to get somebody that's from his family, he's also got to try to work his way through the whole, "Oh, I haven't been kidnapped this whole time" thing, and that would take a little while to kind of, untangle that. But then it'd be like, "Hey, there's this person that you don't know, and we need to go save her right now." that wouldn't have happened. He needed to act on it instantly, and he knew the closest person that would have, taken on something like this was right next to him. So he was going to choose that
Right.
because it was the right thing to do in his mind, I think, too.
Yeah.
And that maybe he thought he did have this trump card eventually where he could just be like, well, I'm the Targaryen. You can't do anything to him because he's my guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's part of that was built in there as well. Of the immediacy of it, I think in his mind overplayed the or overrode the yes, there's a path I should have followed here, but I needed action immediately. So I
Yeah.
pulled the trigger on that there, and then we'll deal with the ramifications later. Ask for was the phrase ask for forgiveness, not for permission. I
Yeah.
think that's what he did here. Um, Also, to compound Dunk's problems, on top of the fact that he supposedly, he was, punched this dude in the face. Then he was also falsely accused of kidnapping poor little egg by
Right.
his brother. And it's just like, man, dude can't win for losing.
Well, and I like that we get the guy that he was with. I think his name's Darren, Darren the drunk, and Darren the drunk can tell the future. I think that's hilarious that he's like, "Well, I could tell the future," and everybody's like, "Yep, he's right," and we're just gonna buy that completely. But I love the imagery that comes out of it. Also, a guy trying to save face, and then him being this huge coward and being like, "Well, if you just give me a conk on the head, I'm gonna go down in this fight, and then you got one less guy to worry about here." So you three stooge this guy right out there on the battlefield, and he's gonna go woo and fall down. So then you're good. Yeah.
So we can still see that there. I mean, the central theme of the at least the last couple of episodes have been um, honor and who's willing to kind of still believe in that old fashioned concept, even to them, of
Mhm.
honor. And we're seeing that very few of them do, um, even at the end with the Apple Knight switching sides. He was like, "Yeah, I'll fight for you." And then he kind of like reassesses his situation, like on the field, going, "Maybe I don't. Maybe this is the uh, the side I
Mhm.
want to be on here." It reminds me of. Did you watch Firefly? Was the movie? What was the name of the show? Uh,
Oh, yeah, and I know what you mean.
yeah, um, but in the movie Firefly, uh, the main character he meets up with a guy that he fought against in the war, and he's like, "I see you're still picking the wrong side." And he's like, "I may have been on the losing side, but I'm still not convinced it wasn't the right one." And I think this is the opposite of that, where he saw that he initially chose the right side, but then he flip flopped to go to the winning side or
And so
winning
you were
side.
right. It was called Firefly, and the movie was called Serenity. So you need to give yourself more credit, Doug. You got it right on the
Okay,
first try.
yay!
I
And
thought it was a great moment because you have Dunk, who's extremely naive, and the only thing he knows about the leader of the Apple Dumpling Gang here is that he's a dick. And so he's like, wow, he's going to stick up for me, this guy who only character trait is he's an absolute jerk. And he's going to be my guy, and he's going to help recruit people to help me fight on the side of right. And it's like, that's not the way this works. You know that's not how this works, right? And he doesn't know that's how it works. So you see that he's not good at playing the game. Everyone else is playing the game and they're playing him. So it's
yes,
just that moment of him doing or trying to do the right thing. And then he's enlisting anybody to stand up and be on his side. Anybody out there that still sees that there's a bit of like truth and justice out there. And he gives a really good speech. I think he puts his full like foot down on this isn't right. I did what's right. You should be standing with me. Where is anyone's honor? and he gets one guy to stand up, and he looks like he's one of the background members of Pantera, and then
Yeah.
you get a big wet fart. And this episode had gone so far without doing a pee pee poo poo joke, Doug, and then
I
they had to
know.
just wedge a pee pee poo poo joke right in there.
I know. I hated that. I was just like, oh, and we were doing so well too. Um, I was just like, really, really. It was they let the frat boys out to edit that part of the episode. So I'm just like, you didn't need that bit. It would have been just as dramatic if he just would have got up and walked away, just walked, just left, like he was gonna go to the bathroom. But yeah, but they had to let him fart. Which brought a little bit of levity there because they even played like the heroic music with that,
Right.
but then he chooses not to. The is it, not Baylor. What is the uncle's name? The one who's first in line for the Iron Throne.
It's Baylor, isn't it? The Hand of the King.
Yeah, Baylor. Yeah, the guy who basically ends up on Dunk's side.
Yeah.
He was trying to guide Dunk through this episode, and we saw that he was like, "How good of a knight are you? How good are you with a sword? Because there's basically one way out of this, and it's everybody's favorite trial by combat." You know, and so he's trying to like edge him into, you got a puncher's chance if nothing else at this. Before we talk about the seven, what was kind of your thoughts on? I guess we should have assumed the trial by combat was coming along somewhere.
Yeah.
What was your thought of making that play here? My mind was I think that was his only way out. He's obviously not going to have some type of attorney. So go in there and try and punch it out, I guess was his best shot.
Yeah, I think that's the only real route that he could have taken. But even that, you get to see the underhandedness of the Targaryens. He's going to invoke this trial by combat, calling on the seven that sounds like people didn't even know existed still. And they were like, even after it gets explained, one of the Targaryens is like, "Oh yeah, the seven. Yeah, that's yeah, I know that. Yeah, sure." But of course, you knew that, right? And it's like it's just a way for him to weasel out of it because know like if he's like seeing the like actual battlefield here in a more metaphoric sense, Dunk doesn't have anybody to sponsor him to even be in this joust. How is he going to get six other guys to come join his side to be a part of this thing? Otherwise, maybe it's an even greater deception by the Targaryens here of people do start to think that we're weak right now. Maybe we can suss out everybody who does think that they're weak because they're going to come to the side of just this Joe Schmo who's going to try to fight one of us. Now we're going to get like an actual, people, the prairie dog popping out of the little hole. You got to whack it on the head with a mallet. So yeah, we need that moment. Maybe that's what that's really about, is kind of this subtle, like, let's see where we stand with everybody right now. Because I think we talked about in the last episode, you get to see the mob mentality is we're going to throw rocks at these guys. We don't like them. We don't like what they do. They're weaker than we've seen them in the past. So maybe this is a way to kind of get them all flushed out here, or fleshed out.
Yeah. I mean, even Good Time Baratheon even comes out and says it. He's like, I get a chance to go bloody up some white cloaks. Yeah, I'm all in. He's like, say no more. That sounds like a good time to me. So they actually, it was a good and bad strategic move on his part because he didn't think that he could pull together seven people. Also lessens his puncher's chance of one on a 1-by-1 fight. Anything can happen, but in a 7-on-7 incursion, you can have some strategy of the other six guys protect you. He doesn't get close enough, or all seven guys target him. They don't even bother with the other six. Their games can be played there as opposed to single combat where it's two guys facing off and you have to You have to deal with the man in front of you. So, but I think that it did blow up in his face a little bit. One, we did see some of the other lower knights go, all right, yeah, you want to fight? I've been waiting for this day to punch you. And then his own uncle, I won't say turns on him, but he's definitely there to at least try and teach him a lesson. He may not kill his nephew, but he sure wants to make sure that he tastes a little mud in the process.
Yeah, and is it Stefan from the House Fosse is the guy who ends up being the like traitor of the whole thing? It's just a kind of a reinforcement of there's no real honor there. And so when they open up the gates and they're like, here comes our seventh guy, in my head, I had no idea who it was going to be because I was like out of characters that he's interacted with throughout this thing. Because you get the one-eyed knight, the crazy guy, and then you get, the guy he's befriended, and that makes sense. And then it's like, but who are these other ones going to be? I mean, it, I had no idea who was coming through that gate. So I think that was a very good Game of Thrones moment of just a little bit of a surprise there that somebody is going to do the right thing. And he's been consistently doing the right thing, which in Game of Thrones gets you killed.
Yes. And I'm glad that it surprised you because I didn't watch it until today. So I had all week. So I basically watched this episode backwards. I saw the big speech at the end, and I saw Baelor telling his brother, you know, he did the right thing. I'm on his side, and kind of announcing that big moment. I saw that everywhere over the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that would come in the middle of the episode. And of course, it's the highlight. It's the last scene. So I kind of watched it backwards. And so for me, that wasn't as big of a reveal because I knew he was coming. But so I'm happy to hear that was a bit of a surprise to people who didn't get spoiled by that. Because you were right. It is a bit of a who does he have left to call in here? Who's going to be his Deus ex machina to come in and save his bacon?
I was wondering, do you think it's kind of a ploy by Baylor to be like, well, nobody's actually going to try to fight me in this thing. So now we've got a little bit more of an even odds like in this battle because nobody's going to come get me because I'm too important or I'm a guy that they don't want to mess with here.
Yeah, I think we could see that play out next week. Yeah, it's now takes it from 7-on-7 to 6-on-6 because we know that the Egg's older brother isn't going to fight either, or not going to give much of an effort if he's willing to go down so early. So those two basically kind of cancel each other out. You basically got. They said the White Cloaks were basically forced to do that. There's 3 of them, and you can pick any 3 of Dunk's other guys to kind of match up with those. And basically, again, we're right back down to 1-on-1 here. So we're going to see kind of how all of that play out. But even when they were discussing the excuse me, the 7-on-7 thing, Baylor was making it sound like, hey, he's getting a little too big for his britches. Maybe this is a good way to kind of take him down. Was that him that was talking about how he really believes that he's the dragon, and if it wasn't him because they were talking to the Apple Dunk
Yeah, that
Club
was
gang.
Darren the Runaway.
Yeah, because he said if he was an apple, he'd be an apple I didn't recognize because we all know Granny Smith is the best apple.
Red Delicious. Come on now. That's the dragon apple right there.
Yeah. I guess, yes. I did notice this week that on his suit of armor he did have a giant old apple on there. I found that quite amusing. Nothing strikes fear in the heart of your opponent like a giant apple on your chest.
Well, and they're like a house falls away of Cider Hall. And we're here, and we've been here for millennia, and we'll be here after they're here. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't remember ever hearing about these guys before. Something real bad's going to happen to all of them here.
Yeah, they are going to get red weddinged because anytime you say we're going to be here after they're here, that is pretty much the end
Yeah,
of
I
the
was like,
hook.
oh boy, we just got red shirted and we were already wearing apples that are red. So there you go.
Yeah, yeah, they were toasty right from the time of the words came out of his mouth. We do get to see Dunk get his shield as well. Got that back with a nice little paint job on there from his girlfriend. Plus, our friend the armorer also upgraded it a little bit, which I thought was nice. And he only charged him a copper, which is good, which is a good rate considering how much he was charging for all of his other stuff.
Yeah, I think it was essentially as close to free as he could make it. So that makes sense that he would go that route. And it just shows that there are people out there that see he's trying to do the right thing and are willing to like kind of stick their neck out for people. They won't do it in a major way, but they'll do it enough that you see that he has the support of people who know he's on the side of good here.
Yes. Yeah. They can't be overt in their actions, but they
Hmm.
can sneak him a little something, something, a little bonus when they can. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I think there was a lot of talky in this episode. Um, not a lot of fighty. I think next week's gonna be all fighty since this week was all talky.
Right.
Um, but overall, I know everybody over the weekend kept telling it like the best episode so far and how it was out. It was a Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb. It has a better score than any episode of the House of the Dragon, which I was a little bit surprised by when I actually watched it because I was like, there's a lot of talky, and nobody's naked in this. And that's usually the two things that that's usually the fighting and the
Universal.
movies are the catalyst for big scores. So I was a little surprised at that. Where would you put this? Would you put this as the best episode of the season so far?
I think so. I think it's pretty easily the best episode of the season so far because it showed the most artistry, I think. Just the moment where sorry, when Dunk and Dunk the Doug, and when Dunk is talking with the blacksmith and Dunk has that realization that this is really happening and this is going to be his death essentially. And he's like, well, you know, all of this is bad. The tree is dying and everything. It's just not right. And he's like, no, that's a spring tree. It means life. It's good. And he has to get kind of brought back to reality there. I think that's a really strong scene, but also the way that they transition from one scene to another is kind of Dunk just crashing from one like scene and one setup and group of characters into another each time where it's just like he doesn't seem to have a path. It all kind of just happens to him instead of him bringing the action to anything. It's all just happening around him and he's just kind of somehow Forrest Gumping his way through this universe where everything like significant is now surrounding him and he's the middle of the orbit for all of this stuff. I thought that was kind of cool the way that they set that up. And it was a reveal to me. I mean, I didn't anticipate like somebody riding in to save the day for him in a major way like that. I think the overall proclamation from Darren the Drunk is where he talks about how all of his dreams come true and the mightiest dragon ends up falling dead on top of Dunk. I think we're supposed to take that as a sign that good things are going to happen from this, knowing that he's going to walk away from this battle because there's going to be additional seasons and you can't have additional seasons without your main character, especially when it's so centrally focused here. But I think my takeaway from that meant that Baylor is going to die in this battle because he's the mightiest dragon of them all. It just makes sense in a Game of Thrones kind of way that they have to punish you because anytime that you're starting to be happy and enjoy something, that abusive relationship comes back around and they're just like, we're gonna get you good here. So I have bad feelings about what's coming next week.
Like the old saying goes, if you think this thing has a happy ending in terms of Game of Thrones, you haven't been paying attention.
Right.
That's what they used to say during the original series. So
I think that it's going to be a little bit different though, because how do you vault? It feels like you have to vault Dunk and Egg back out of this together again in some
mhm.
way. But you also, through the reveal of Egg kind of sharing with him, this is who I am. I didn't think that it would ever go this far. You do kind of see that change in him now that he is in a different set of clothes. You can see that he carries himself differently. He goes with his hands behind his back for conversations with Dunk. He shows that stance that is kind of like I'm a social better, or I have this like uh, kind of stance of power almost, whereas you're in a prison cell in my family's prison and you're just this guy. So I don't know how they're going to sew them back together. I think that's the part that I'm most interested in is if they are going to be like off on adventures together after this, how do they get them tied back together in a way where they can trust each other again, but also go off and be on adventures together. When
Yeah,
they're talking about in like the original Game of Thrones, the Duncan Egg story, it's like there were multiple stories. So how do we get multiple stories out of this? What happens next?
yeah. How is Egg getting away from the Targaryen family for an extended period of time? They might, depending upon what happens next week and the week after, you could you could make a case of, oh, he'll go squire with him for a year or something, to do a short term type thing. But we know that he eventually comes back and goes does the whole Targaryen ruling thing. So I'm curious to see kind of what they do to get him on the road, get the little Batman and Robin
Mhm.
going together there without killing off his parents, which I guess is still on the table. Um,
Very much so.
yeah, so I mean that could certainly be it. So yeah, so we'll see how that all plays out uh, next week and the week after. But yeah, I got a feeling next week, like you said last week, the penultimate episode is typically the big one in the Game of Thrones uh, world. And so I think we're going to see a lot of fighty next week, and then the following week will be the fallout, the wrap up, and the setup for season two.
Yeah. And one thing I was thinking about when you're talking about that is, you have Egg who he makes no like he doesn't try to hide the fact that he wants Arian dead throughout this episode. And so you start to think back to his choice of do I go get, my family to stop him or do I go to get Dunk to stop him? And maybe in like some sort of Targaryen way, that is a ploy. He's like, if Dunk sees what's happening here, he might just kill this guy. But if I go get my parents to try to, deal with this or my family to try to deal with this, they're just gonna, give him the slap on the wrist. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. But if I get Dunk to go do this right now, he might kill this guy, and that's what I want out of this situation.
Yeah. Also makes me wonder now that you say that if that isn't the way that he opens the door for his traveling adventures, is Dunk sneaks on the field and stabs his brother, or not his brother, but his cousin, um, Sir Douchebag. No, I guess that is his brother. Um, but gives him the old stabby in the back um, when nobody's looking, or when he's in a vulnerable moment or something, just because that's his opportunity to get rid of the guy, and then that's his ticket out of the family for a few years. They'll exile him for whatever, and then he'll eventually come back for that'll be another story of how he gets back.
Right, right. But it's exciting. I think next week is going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, I do too. I think big fighty next week. I think always good to have a 14-man melee going on. Maybe they'll bust into the crowds. Maybe the crowds will give a little wacky whack on the while while they're in there, like a good WWE crowd, something like that. So we'll see what that is. But I anticipate a lot of action next week. A lot of sword fighting, a lot of people getting punched in the face. So should be all kinds of entertaining next week.
Yeah, we've been devoid of that throughout most of this, outside of a joust here or there. So I think it's going to be saving up a lot for a major body count here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty brutal. We've already seen them show, even in the limited joust,
Right.
that they're not afraid to pull punches on the brutality, and I think we're going to see a lot of that next week.
Absolutely.
So make sure you watch it with an empty stomach.
No Super Bowl party.
No Super Bowl party. No, you go easy on the guac. All right. Anything else about this episode we want to talk about, Chris, before we go?
Oh, just thanks everybody for tuning in. I know that it's one of these type of shows where you want to find out a little bit more, but we're just a couple of guys sharing what we think about things, and we appreciate everybody who took some time out of their day to listen to what we have to say and enjoy the show alongside us.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, everyone who pops in, watches us, and checks us out on social media. Always appreciate that. So until next week, I'm Doug. He is Chris. And we will see y'all next time. Bye bye.